Baiklah, saya Puan Afida binti Abu Bakar akan bertindak sebagai pengacara majlis untuk webinar pagi ini. Sebelum kita memulakan sesi, saya ingin mengingatkan semua peserta untuk: pertama, memastikan mikrofon anda dimatikan ketika sesi sedang berlangsung bagi mengelakkan sebarang gangguan. Kedua, menggunakan ruang sembang chat untuk mengajukan sebarang soalan yang ingin ditanya kepada penceramah. Kami akan mengambil beberapa soalan untuk diajukan kepada penceramah di akhir sesi nanti. Hadirin sekalian, hari ini kita akan bersama-sama mengikuti webinar Siri Transformasi Eksekutif Perdana Bilangan 16 tahun 2026 dengan tajuk Sains Terbuka dan Pengurusan Data Penyelidikan, Memperkasa Ekosistem Pendidikan Tinggi. Webinar ini akan berlangsung selama 1 jam 30 minit. Kami berharap para peserta dapat memanfaatkan sesi ini dengan baik. Sebelum meneruskan sesi ini, izinkan saya membaca latar belakang ringkas penceramah kita. Profesor Dr. Noorsaadah binti Abd Rahman, Fellow Akademi Sains Malaysia, selaku Pengerusi Jawatankuasa Pemandu Sains Terbuka Malaysia yang menerajui dan memacu inisiatif Sains Terbuka di peringkat kebangsaan. Beliau merupakan seorang ahli kimia yang memiliki ijazah sarjana muda dan ijazah sarjana dalam bidang kimia dari California. Kemudian, beliau telah memperoleh ijazah Doktor Falsafah dalam bidang sintesis organik dari University of Cambridge. Dalam bidang kepimpinan akademik, beliau pernah menyandang jawatan sebagai Timbalan Naib Kansellor Penyelidikan dan Inovasi di Universiti Malaya. Atas sumbangan cemerlang dalam bidang sains dan penyelidikan, beliau telah diiktiraf sebagai Fellow Akademi Sains Malaysia dan penerima pengiktirafan Top Research Scientist Malaysia, dan beliau juga merupakan Fellow Institut Kimia Malaysia serta pernah berkhidmat sebagai Setiausaha Agung Akademi Sains Malaysia. Selain itu, beliau aktif dalam memperkasa inisiatif sains terbuka di Malaysia. Beliau memegang jawatan sebagai Pengerusi Malaysian Open Science Alliance dan Jawatankuasa Malaysia Open Science Platform yang menyelia pelaksanaan fasa 1 Sains Terbuka di Malaysia. Sumbangan beliau turut diiktiraf di peringkat antarabangsa apabila dilantik sebagai Wakil Malaysia dalam satu Jawatankuasa Penasihat UNESCO berkaitan sains terbuka. Hadirin yang dihormati, tanpa membuang masa, marilah kita mengalu-alukan Profesor Dr. Noorsaadah binti Abd Rahman untuk menyampaikan perkongsian beliau. Dengan segala hormatnya dipersilakan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi. Terima kasih Pengerusi majlis. Sebelum saya mula, saya ingin mengucapkan terima kasih kepada Jawatankuasa yang menjalankan webinar ni kerana menjemput saya untuk memberi sedikit background ataupun latar belakang tentang apa yang kita lakukan. Boleh dengar kan?
Boleh, Prof.
Boleh, okey. Okey, tentang Malaysian Open Science. Saya minta maaf sebab slide saya ni adalah dalam bahasa Inggeris. So, saya akan continue ataupun teruskan dalam bahasa Inggeris. Izin, insyaAllah. Okay, so as I said, izinkan saya meneruskan talk ni dalam bahasa Inggeris sebab saya punya slide pun saya prepare pun dalam bahasa Inggeris, unfortunately. So, apakah itu, what is open science? I think everybody actually dah tahu apa itu open science. It's not a new science. It's actually has been there for a long time. Cuma the term of open science ni decoined in the early 2000. Okay, apabila internet at the advance of the internet and wide world web, then people started talking about open science. Okay, it is actually an inclusive construct that combines various movements and practices aiming to make multilingual scientific knowledge openly available, accessible, and reusable to everyone. Because we know that we have scientists all over the places with different language, that they actually talk about, and they publish in. So we want to try and make this, as openly available to everybody, so that it can be reused by everyone. So it's also an aim to increase the scientific collaboration and sharing of information for benefit of science and the society, and open the process of scientific knowledge creation, evaluation, and communication to societal actors beyond the traditional scientific community. Meaning, we may have others who are actually not scientists per se, but are scientifically aware, and they have other knowledge that actually would be useful to the scientists and the society, that needs to be opened up. So when we talk about this, we are talking mainly about citizen science and indigenous knowledge of a region. So it actually helps to open this knowledge up to the scientific community. So open science comprise all scientific discipline and aspect of scholarly practice, including the basic science, applied science, natural and social sciences, and the humanities. So when we talk about open science kat sini, we do not actually just limit it to science and technology, but also involve social sciences and humanities. Some places call it open research, but I think the more prominent word is open science, and it operates on the principle of FAIR, okay, which is the findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. I think I will explain this a little bit more later. Okay. So why do we want to do open science? Okay, open science is based on the principle that the results of publicly funded research should be publicly available. Sebab a lot of this research, kebanyakan research yang kita buat ni bukannya datang dari duit kita sendiri kan. Is taxpayers' money, is public money. So we are accountable to the public for the research that we do. So the result should be actually publicly available. It's not just to be saved in our lab for our own use, but it's for everybody's use. Okay, so this can only be achieved by creating an open and transparent process for generating, evaluating, and the sharing of the results. So open science policy is a framework that is designed to make scientific data, research, and output freely accessible and reusable, governed by the principle of being as open as possible and as close as necessary. Because we understand that some data, okay, may not be, should not be open for security reason. It can be confidential, particularly things like health data, ataupun for national security. It can be closed, okay, but there are steps that we can take to enable, accessibility of, the output of this data. So it aims at democratizing knowledge, accelerating innovation, and fostering public trust in science. So, but at least the public knows what the output and what we have done, okay, in terms of the slide, in terms of our research, okay, which now that perhaps public can use, government can use it for policy making, for example. So it's more evidence based and transparent. Okay, sorry. So most open science policies yang ada, okay, they are built on several foundation, okay, foundational pillars. Okay, so open access to publication, that is one of the pillar of open science. Okay, it's just open science is just not open access. Open access is a subset of open science, because people sometimes misunderstand and actually think that when we talk about open science, we talk about open access. It's more than that. Okay, but one of the pillar is open access, which mandates the publicly funded research output and publication to be deposited in a public repository immediately after we finish, the research, or after a certain period of time, if there is some confidentiality and anonymity that we need to use. It's based on the fair research data principle, which require the research data, the code, methodology to be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, so that we can promote data sharing and data reproducibility that can be reused in other places. It is also built upon open collaborative infrastructure, okay, such as developing shared digital platform like the European Open Science Cloud. Malaysia, we have Malaysian Open Science Platform, which are almost P. Now we are also talking about a regional collaboration in terms of APEC. So it's called APEC, APEC Open Science System. This allows cross-institutional and international data sharing. So you can, actually, get data from other research work that you can use into your research. And also the last but not least is citizen science, which encourage active participation of general public and non-professional scientists in research and data gathering, because that scientists cannot be in 10 places at the same time. So there are times when, it is very useful to have citizen science participating in your work. For example, if you are gathering data on, the stars, you cannot be in Malaysia and in New Zealand, for example, at the same time. But, you can get pictures from New Zealand through the citizen science program that, this data can be used into your research. So this is also something that will help very much in your research. So there are actually key pillars. Under UNESCO recommendation of open science, there are four different pillars of open science. One is the open dialogue. The main one that we use, in fact, in Malaysia that we first started on is open scientific knowledge. Okay, this allow access to scientific knowledge that are available under public domain or under copyright or license to be used to be actually shared under certain condition, and it provides all actors immediately to the data or as quickly as possible to the data they need. Okay, and under this is where open access comes in, and open educational resources also comes in here, because we do have a lot of open sources that goes through, for example, for MOOC program that you have. Okay, these are educational resources. So, these are something that, can be put under the open science. Open infrastructure, we haven't actually gone much into it in Malaysia. It's just a platform that actually collects or harvests the metadata from, our alliance. But a lot of other countries, particularly China, they have moved beyond that, where they have shared research infrastructure that supports their scientific needs. We know that we can easily have open access to cloud computing or cloud facilities or computer facilities, but open science infrastructures go beyond that can not only be virtual but also physical. So in terms of China, for example, now they have gone beyond to the physical, meaning if you have one major equipment which is like multi-million-dollar, and another institution does not have it because it's too expensive, so we can actually share it through some means to this open science infrastructure. We're hoping to work on this in Malaysia soon. Hopefully, we'll be able to share some infrastructures and facilities, that are available at some institutions but not in others. Open dialogue with other knowledge systems. Okay, this involves indigenous knowledge, marginalized scholars, also, the local community. These are the knowledge traditionally in that particular community that, are very valuable, because some of us, kind of ignore, the traditional knowledge of, our ancestors that have been actually used for, years and years, and suddenly, it's just lost, particularly in indigenous knowledge. So we actually need to learn how these people, do things and add value to it through our scientific knowledge. For example, I think many of us in Malaysia work on biodiversity in terms of the traditional medicine. Okay, and this knowledge are also important, that helps us to move, medical research forward through the knowledge that they use, or people use. We have one example where in Sabah, I think, the indigenous society there actually clean up, how they clean up the river to a point of, to it to be very, very clean, that you can even see, the fishes in the river. So, what knowledge do they have that we can use to help us clean, rivers elsewhere that, we have actually polluted. So there's many knowledge out there. There's a lot of knowledge out there that can be used. So this is where the open dialogue with other knowledge system is part of open science. And the last but not least is the open engagement of societal actors. Okay, this involves the citizen and participatory science, where we also, or people who are actually non-professional scientists or non-professional researchers, okay, are involved in this. They can volunteer in some research, data gathering. They can help us with crowdsourcing and crowdfunding. So this is something that also part of the science. And I think in Malaysia we are moving, in looking at how citizen and participatory science can help our research and in terms of data gathering. Okay, so there are a lot of values to this. One, it actually creates responsible science. It reinforces the scientific inquiry, but also promotes promotes research quality and integrity through reproducibility, transparency, and accountability for verification and avoiding fraud. We have a lot of retraction papers, but if we have the data open, okay, that people can actually now try our data, use our data, then it actually helps us to ensure that at least there is minimal fraud, because people can't just put in the data into the repository and other people use it or actually look into it and discover that we haven't actually really done the research. It's just actually fraud, or at least the quality is actually is maintained there, because other people can verify your findings. It helps to democratize science because, as mentioned earlier, public funded researchers are accountable to the public or the society, because you use the funds that are given by the public, okay, through the taxpayers fund, for example. So this helps to increase the return on public investment in scientific research and promotes equitable use of data that enables citizen science to participate. It also helps to make science or evidence-informed, evidence-based policy making, because we don't now, if you want to make policy, we actually have the data rather than having to start over or cook up some data before coming up with a policy. It also helps in actually open innovation, okay, because business enterprise now can actually produce new product through the data that are available, because it's easier now for them to identify the source of data and go to the various data owner, because one research does not make new product or does not make one innovation. You may have to have 3 or 4 research output from various groups, from various places, to actually come up with maybe a good product. So for businesses it's easier if they can actually have access to the at least metadata. They know where the data is, and they can actually now contact each of the various researchers to actually use this data to come up with products. So it helps to democratize science. It helps in scientific research, because now we actually scientific research progress, because we actually are moving a lot forward a lot faster, because we already have some of the data that are available that other people have done, that we do not have to repeat to start over. So, and it also fosters collaboration, because if I were looking at some data, then I need and another person in maybe Pahang has this data, I can actually contact, because I know it's already there. I can contact the person, the data owner in Pahang, in UMP, and actually talk to the researcher there and start a collaboration in this. So it can actually now enhance the collaboration, and also allow our researchers to be now more internationally, globally connected. Okay, through big data analytics, through other data sharing, etc. And most importantly, actually, the research management, it helps to maximize data utility. Data is an asset. The more you use it, the more valuable the data is. You don't have, if you have a data and it sits in your lab, it is not as valuable as, if your data is being used by other people as well. So the more data is being used, the more valuable, the more the value of the data is. So, this open science help to maximize this data utility, because it does not only mean that, if I'm a chemist and I'm doing work on chemistry, on certain things, that my data only a chemist can use. A physicist may be able to use it, a mathematician may be able to use it to do some statistics, social scientists may be able to look at it and look at, how it influences society in terms of the chemical that's being used, etc. So they don't have to gather that data already, because the data is already there. So, as much as the data is being used, then the value actually increases. It also, this is very, very important, help to minimize cost of unnecessary duplication of research and have better planning in research management and funding. Because we know, whether you like it or not, and I know a lot of you, and I sit in panels of evaluation, sometimes when we look at the proposal, we say, isn't this, research proposal funded already 3 years ago? Because the data is not available, people are actually now asking, writing proposals, asking to collect the same data. So it is actually better for them to actually have this data and then extend the research beyond what already has, or fill in the gaps of where that research does not actually provide data, rather than duplicating the research and then we are funding it again. So maybe the data is available like 5 years ago, somebody has done this work, but the data is not available, not findable, not accessible, and then like 5 years down the line, I decided, I should do this work, and I actually applied for a research, put in a research proposal, applied for funding. Nobody knows that somebody has done this before, and it was funded for 1 million, but this time around I asked for 3 million and I get 3 million. So, unfortunately, that actually do cost a lot, rather than, that 3 million could be used for something else, or to extend the research, rather than collecting the data, same data over and over again. Okay. All right. So it is not only in Malaysia. Malaysia actually, to be honest, started late, but I'm happy to say that we're not as late as Thailand. Thailand just started, but we started in 2019 actually, but other places have started a long time ago. China has started in actually 2003. They started after they have actually a meeting on co-data meeting or global science meeting or something like that in Europe. European Union started it. China also started it. Amsterdam, Netherlands actually is one of the first one to actually go into this. That's why you see Europe has the Amsterdam call for action on open science, and we all know that if you want to apply for a grant from European Union, one of the criteria that is required there is, that you have to tell them is on how you do your data what is your data management plan? Because what they wanted is to actually know how accessible is your data. If you don't have a data management plan, then you technically you are knocked out from the the proposals evaluation. So it is something that is quite important. US, in spite of what is going on now, still had in 2022 mandated make it mandatory for all research funded by the federal funding to be, equitable and also in open repository. Okay, so they have an open science, year in the US in 2023, if I'm not mistaken. Australia is another one that is actually very, very, ahead of us. Japan now also, for all the research that is being done, that is funded by, the Japanese government, they are actually making it mandatory to have this data management plan, which actually includes open accessibility and findability. Okay, so they are not just Malaysia, but national wide. Things are going to actually open science, so that we are able to share data and actually solve the challenges that we face in society a lot faster and easier. We see this in COVID. During COVID time, actually. So this is where we have now for the region, APAC region, we are actually forming this because we think that it is good to share and collaborate between the APAC economies to share and to solve the challenge faced by the APAC economies. The challenges we face are almost the same: climate change, health security, food security. But what one economy or what one country does with the data that they have versus the other country, okay, can be actually much, much more useful if it's shared and we know how to move things forward without having to redo the research. Yeah. Okay. Open science is also aligned to the National Policy on Science, Technology and Innovation. Okay. Where it is in strategy D, okay, which encourages open data sharing. And the initiative D1, okay, in that strategy D is setting up a Malaysian open science platform. Okay, so this is part of the national science policy, national policy on science, or this technology and innovation, this thing that was launched by MUSTI a while back. Okay, so just some background on how open science actually started in Malaysia in 2016. The Academy of Sciences Malaysia participated in the APAC meeting, and Malaysia actually brought up the idea of open science. At the same time, under the Ministry of Higher Education, a project was funded by Newton and Co. Omar Fund, okay, for professional development and engagement of research, and we have 4 programs under there that University Malaya led at that time. Okay, and one of the program that we were looking at was research data repository. Okay, at that time it was not called open science because we were looking at how we are going to maintain this repository, how we're going to do this repository, because University Malaya, as you know, being a very old university, a lot of our researchers have retired. And we discovered when we clean up some of our very, very, very senior researchers, for example, like the late Tan Sri Kukeki, when we open his office, there are many data there, many data. We do not want to throw them away because they're very valuable, and it's very good data to be used for other people to reuse the data. So how do we do this? We need to have a research data repository. We can't have buildings of papers, lab books, etc., archiving these things. So that's why we decided to do this. But this one does not only involve University of Malaya. It was a Ministry of Higher Education higher education program, so it involves some other universities as well that are actually involved in this program. So in 2019, so when we came back, we were asked to actually sit together and actually decide how we can actually move this forward. So in 2019, MUSTI actually under the ASM under the purview of MUSTI gather 5 research universities, and then decided that maybe we have to have one research university, one platform for research data sharing. Okay, mainly because the 5 research university are the oldest university in Malaysia, and they are research university. They have a lot of research output and data, that can be shared by other universities as well. So, but if it's not shared, then if it sits in the laboratory of each of the researchers in each university, then the data is not going to be useful. So we started this project on Malaysian Open Science Platform, and we formed a Malaysian Open Science Alliance comprising of 5 research universities, and MOSTI, and a couple of other MIMOS, I think, a couple of other government agencies, and started this program. And we have a pilot project that we did first, because to do this, we need to actually have a properly trained data stewards, one who knows how to do data, how to curate data, how to store data, so that it is not just a garbage in, garbage out, as the computer people like to say. The data that goes in there is something that is reusable, okay, not just simply any data. So we first had to do a landscape study to find out how ready Malaysian researchers to do open science, okay. And then from this, we actually started, to do a guideline, and we now have one national guideline, okay, that we need to actually do for Malaysia, and then we need to have a platform, because we how do we link this data? How do we actually find this data? So we needed to have a platform. So we had a Malaysian Open Science platform that we actually started. I will explain to you later about what this is, because it's not what people think that the normal platform is. So now we already have one national guideline on open science, which is supplementary part of the national policy on data sharing. Okay, that was that cabinet has actually approved, endorsed in 2022, August 2022. So that means we do have a national policy on open science. So in 2024, we also did other studies, and because for a lot of Malaysian researchers are doing work on biodiversity, we thought that it would be good to have one guideline on how to do, or how to actually store biodiversity data. So we had this one guideline and 3 manual for fair data stewardship on biodiversity. We published this. You can actually download it or look at it at the ASM website, because the biodiversity, the data on how you actually gather the data, for example, the picture, the image that you put in for biodiversity, for people to actually identify the taxonomy of a plant, for example, is very important. So we need to have, the thing properly documented, so that other researchers who are going to use it will be able to actually, follow through. Because, for example, one plant, if you put it in a different way, you cannot identify, the species of the plant. So, another person who wants to use that species will not be able to understand or be able to use. So it's very important to do that. We continue the training, and then we actually now are connected to more national repository, universities repository. We now have, I think, about 12 members already in the alliance, starting from the 5 research universities. We have now and 5 research university and 3 government institutions. Now we have 12. A few other universities have come on board. For example, UNIMAS now is in, UTHM is in connection. OPSI is talking to us now, trying to connect. USIM is also trying to connect. UTP is also trying to connect. So we can now get access to the research data from their researchers in these universities. Okay, so these are the alliance at the moment. As I mentioned earlier, we started off with only 5 research universities and 3 agencies, but now we have, if you look at that, we have quite a number of alliance. Although some of us are not still connected, but we do have a alliance meeting. So, for example, University Sarawak is connected. University Terengganu is in the process of getting connected. And University Terengganu, you can actually look at their INOS data, which is marine biology data, for example, so which is very important. UTHM is already connected, and then amongst the agency, FRIM is not connected per se properly, but it is in the process. Mastic is connected through mostly to radars, although now radars is they are reforming, but they are connected, so you can actually get information from research done on Science Fund, for example. Okay, so these are the alliance at the moment. So as I mentioned earlier, this was our phase 1. We had 3 programs: guideline and landscape, capacity building and infrastructure. So the output that we had published guideline on open science for public funded, not in public funded, for public funded research, which has been accepted as a subset of the National Data Sharing Policy under the Ministry of Communication and Digital. So it is a national policy. We have published a landscape study on open science. We are doing a second landscape study because we now, a lot of people are a little bit more aware of what open science is as compared to before. We have trained more than 380 data stewards, and we are actually continuously training, because the first part of the training is on how to manage the data, how to curate the data. But we discovered also that each data from the different discipline requires different thing. So that means that you have to also train the data stewards on content, on how biology data is being curated as compared to how chemistry data is being curated, for example, or how a language data is being curated as compared to how an economic data is being curated. So we need to do some advanced training on that. We continue on our social media and web posting to increase awareness, particularly for now citizen science, because we need to have one how the citizen actually participates. And then we have to we are looking at integrated database on one platform. Okay, so in Malaysia we call it MOSPI. In Korea they call it Data On. Okay, Korea Data On, something like that. So there are various platform. I will explain the platform subsequently. Okay, so this is the national guideline. If you are interested to find out what it is, okay, you can actually download it or get it online. This is the one that is being published currently, and the strategic objective of this policy is to encourage transparency and integrity that will help to enhance the research verification, prevent data manipulation, and improve overall scientific integrity. Also, it helps to increase efficiency by maximizing the return on public investment in research by eliminating paywalls and reduce duplication of research effort, and also help enhance responsible evaluation. So we are shifting away on how researchers are assessed from the traditional public metric, hopefully, towards rewarding open sharing, data deposition, and social impact. So this is something that we hope that the universities or our academic institution will look into, rather than assess research based only on publication or traditional publication like Journal Imperfecta, but maybe also to share, to reward data sharing through open sharing. And you actually, to be honest, if you do this, your citation will be a lot faster, because people can cite your data without even having to look at your publication, which may take maybe about a couple of years to publish, because you need to sit down and synthesize your data, come up with thoughts, send in your publication, get the review, and then you have to tweaks, based on the reviewer, peer review. But the data, people actually can use your data before your publication, for other purposes, maybe not for the purpose that you are using. So they can cite your data. So, we have a process on how, this data, once somebody else use, how they need to cite or how they should cite, okay, the data. Okay, this is to enforce this policy, the funding body, okay, such as the European Commission. We haven't done this yet in Malaysia. We hope that maybe we should move towards this. European Commission and, as I mentioned, Japan also now actually look at this. It's mandate data management plan. Okay, so require grant applicants to outline how they will store, manage, and share their data before the fund is awarded. Okay, and then cover publication fees, because we know as a researchers how expensive it is to actually pay the publication page charge. So under open science, it shouldn't be this should be minimal, or if as much as possible not charge the excessive processing charge. We publish the work. We do the work. The research data is ours. We wrote the paper. We send it to the journal. Journal accepts it and publish, and it becomes a copyright of the journal. And when we want to use the journal, the paper back 3 years down the line, because maybe we lost the paper, and we need to actually refer to the paper and refer to the work we've done, we have to pay copyright to the journal for the work that we did with our funds. So this is something that we need to think about. So that's why open science is actually think that we should actually look at the how article processing charge is being used. Okay, and then we need to also establish clear embargo limits, okay, or strict time frame. For example, there are many research that are also confidential, but they will not be confidential for years, for 10 years, for example. There must be some limit to it that that public should be able to now access after a certain time. Okay, I will not continue with this, but we have research data management plan in various university, what it entails. I think somebody else is going to talk about this research management plan at a certain date in your program. So this is the University of Malaya's research management plan, for example. And there are other institutions that has the same thing. They have open science policy. USM has one. Internationally, UTROY has, for some example, Cambridge has, open science policy. And they also institution, NASA also have, an open science policy at the moment, which they tie themselves up to the CERN open science policy. Okay, so this is the Malaysian Open Science Platform. Okay, we call it MOSPI. And you can access to this. Of course, you are asked to register, but you don't have to pay anything. Registration is just to see the number of users that we have. That's it. Okay, and we are going to probably have a couple more added. Later we have a project on precision biodiversity, which has got tremendous biodiversity data, and we will have a special, hopefully, category for that, for those people working on Malaysian biodiversity. So we have medical, we have climate. It doesn't look much. This was when we pull out, but we hope to have more. Korea has about 2 million in the data in their hundred thousands of data sets. We don't have very many yet, but we hope that most of our researchers will start putting in the repository, and so that we can have a lot more data. And okay, this is where I wanted to actually say, we don't keep your data at MOSPI, which is in ASM at the moment. The data is still in the repository at your institution. So if it's UM, it's in UM's repository. What we have is in MOSPI are the metadata, which is also very important. In fact, it's the first step to people coming into your system, wanting to know what you've done. So metadata is just a kind of like abstract of your work and the type of data you collect, so that anybody who wants to know what you are doing or what you're collecting can read through this and say, oh, okay, I'm interested in this, what they're doing. So they go into your repository at the different institution. So MOSPI just harvest the metadata from the institutional repository. We don't keep your research data. So your research data, the security of your research data, the management of your research data is actually the responsibility of your research repository at the different institution, which I know for sure that your university or your institution are very, very careful with this, because it is your data. So the security there is even tighter than it is there would be at most people. Okay. So this I think mostly architecture will be also talked about later by I think somebody. I think you have two other programs. Dengan you, Prof. Yujisan, I think will be talking about this later. Management plan, maybe Dr. Noorsaadah will be talking about this at some other time. Okay, I'm just doing the introduction bit, but this is how the architecture of MOSPI is. Okay, and currently this is what we are doing. For this current activity, we are looking at guideline on clinical. In fact, we have a workshop now, guideline on clinical and healthcare data harmonization. This is very, very important because a lot of people are working on clinical data, healthcare data. Even if you're doing biodiversity, sometimes you're looking at this clinical data. And we have one of our alliance, national NIH, national NIH, okay, the health under the health ministry as one of our alliance, and also trying to connect to MOSPI, which makes it a lot easier, because people will understand that sometimes working with Ministry of Health is very, very difficult, because they're very protective of their data. But I'm happy to say that they are part of open science, and now we can actually move a lot faster if their data is open. So now we have this data harmonization guideline, and then hopefully we'll produce a manual on clinical and healthcare data, like we did we did with the biodiversity. And this clinical and healthcare data is now also bigger than just Malaysia. It's now also part of a consortium, international consortium. Okay, so we are doing capacity building, continuing doing capacity building. Our first manual was the Fair Data Stewardship Certification, which we are doing at the moment, continuous doing. Okay, we are also now looking at open science in practice, citizen science champion, and citizen science training of trainers. These are the modules that are available online. Some of them are face-to-face, but the Fair Data Stewardship Certification, I think, is online. Okay, but we can check that. So we're also connecting to new repositories, as I mentioned earlier. UTHM, USIM, UMT are actually looking, at connecting to MOSPI, and MyBase, which is a database on biodiversity at FRIM, is also connecting at the moment. So we have a lot of data from FRIM data that can be used, that we can access, hopefully. Internationally, we are in charge of the guideline on APEC Open Science Alliance, which hopefully once we form at the end of this year, we are going to move into looking at using the tools or the data from APEC Open Alliance to have a research program, a mission-oriented research program, and we wait for APEC to choose what the research is going to be. And we're also looking at monitoring, because we realize that the data that we have, sometimes, as I mentioned, people put in the data in the repository, but it is not something that is reusable. Interoperable is difficult enough, but if it's not reusable, such as you put in the data as a graph form, which is not reusable, what we require is actually a raw research data which other people can use in other ways. For example, I give you one example of University Malaya's research that I think is a good example for reusable is somebody who's doing research on language and linguistics. Okay, old language and linguistics. So they actually interview old people on the various language and how the language actually how people communicate. And then they also songs. Okay, this old man singing a song, in the melody and the lyrics in this old language. The person who is doing music research do not now have to go and re-interview. The data is there. Okay, they can always open and actually listen to this person sing and actually use the data there for his or her research in music. So it's a different set of research that is being using the same set of data. So this is how we are looking at, and we are looking at monitoring. Okay, so open science actually can significantly accelerate research progress by promoting transparency, collaboration, and accessibility. I mentioned this earlier. So when researchers share their data, methods, and findings openly, it reduces duplication of effort and enables other researchers to build upon existing work more efficiently, and it fosters innovation. Open innovation speeds up problem solving and help ensure the scientific knowledge is widely accessible, that enable open innovation and ultimately will benefit the society as a whole. So we look at one simple example. One simple example before that. Sorry. Okay, before that. We have done this before with the COVID because people are sharing their sequence, their data, blah blah blah. So you're able to actually come up with a vaccine early as compared to usual coming out with vaccine that takes about 4 or 5 years, just to come up with the vaccine. Okay, so the data, the open database, that are available for researchers enable, other researchers to develop, what is required for, the COVID vaccine. So, we can also have another example, certain university specializes in some, some research with certain data that another institution can use that data for another work that they are doing. So this actually helps to make our research progress much faster. Okay, so I think this is my last slide. Okay, so it's just a summary. So open science represents a community-wide paradigm shift to make research more collaborative, transparent, and useful for society. It is a collaborative, transparent, and inclusive movement designed to make scientific research, data, and methodology accessible to everyone, accelerating discovery and improving reproducibility. So by sharing the knowledge early, okay, we can break down barriers, increase public trust, and enhance the equity in science. Okay, so I think, as I said, this is my last slide. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take questions if there is any. Thank you.
Saya stop sharing Puan.
Yes.
Boleh cik. Kita tunggu soalan sekejap ya, kalau ada soalan.
Kalau ada soalan, I'm happy to answer. Kalau tak ada pun tak apa.
Ada soalan daripada peserta? Bentar ya Prof.
Actually, siapa audience?
Audience kita buka kepada warga UMPSA dan kita blast juga promosi keluar Prof. Ini ada juga peserta luar lah. Okey, saya nampak ada satu soalan. Saya bacakan ya Prof?
Ya, saya
Okey.
boleh baca kat sini.
Okey. Prof bacakan, saya bacakan?
Baca.
Alright. Pada pandangan Prof, adakah IPT perlu membangunkan repository data terlebih dahulu, menyediakan polisi RDM atau memberi latihan kepada penyelidik? Antara ketiga-tiga ini, yang manakah perlu didahulukan dan mengapa?
Okey. pada saya, first you kena sediakan the policy. Okay, ada orang dia bangunkan data, tapi dia bangunkan repository, which is also important because you nak kena deposit kat mana kan, tapi repository tu kosong sebab researcher tak nak deposit. So kalau institusi tu tak ada policy, there is nothing to mandate the researcher to deposit data. So macam okay, just what we did, and this is also what Australia actually also said. This is what they think works with Malaysia. Okay, because kita ada policy. Australia dia ada all this repository, tapi dia kata susah untuk dia dapatkan data. Lepas tu now they are moving towards actually just setting up policy. But the first thing is to actually to me set a policy. So kalau institusi tu ada policy, RDM policy, setiap research yang dibiayai atau funded by the institution, for example, ada one university kat sini baru I just talked to them, they are doing this. Any fund that is being funded by the institution, by the university, dia kena masukkan, dia kena ada research data management plan where the data is going to be deposited in the repository. Okay, so I think this is important. But at the same time, bila you buat the repository tu, you need to have data stewards. Okay, it does not have to be the researcher. Okay, pada saya and dekat UM pun, kita train researcher, tapi the most important group that kita train are the librarians. Sebab the librarians are actually what we call knowledge keeper. Dia jaga knowledge ni sebenarnya. Kalau dia cakap kat library tu, bukan dia jaga buku, dia jaga knowledge sebenarnya. Sekarang ni orang tak simpan buku dah, kan? Orang tak ada banyak buku dah. Banyaknya dalam internet, banyak dalam cloud, bla bla bla. But who is responsible for this? Biasanya the knowledge tu ada librarians. Who knows how to curate? Who knows how to do this? Ada librarians. So dekat Universiti Malaya, yang ramai kita train adalah librarian. Lepas tu, librarians tu kita attach to the research group. Satu librarian mungkin dia akan attach to satu research group. Okay, dan dari situlah yang kita tahu yang actually librarian kata they need to have this content. Sebab apa, the way they buat, the way they put in the data is different from one group to another. Okay, one discipline to another. So then kita started the content. Tapi the librarians then suddenly feel that they belong to the research. Okay, so saya galakkan researchers to be together with the researcher, and then you also can train kita also apart from that, kita then started training the younger researcher lah, the graduate student kan, sebab subsequently they need to do it themselves. Tapi the first part of the work, masa mula-mula start training semua tu, librarian will be there. But after a while, the librarian wants to stay in that group, okay, because they see, the interesting things that people are putting in terms of, data collection. So pada saya, first you have to have a policy, and then you actually have the repository together, training of the data stewards. Okay, sebab kita tak nak main masuk je data, dan kita tak tahu apa data tu, nanti dia jadi macam tempat yang collect data. People dump data kan, padahal tak ada kegunaan pun data tu. Okay. Pendekatan terbaik untuk menggalakkan perkongsian penyidikan dalam, sebenarnya kita dah kongsi dah data ni, cuma kita kongsi secara tak nampak kan. Bila orang tanya, kita kongsi. So one of the things that we suggest actually is for institution to use dia punya promotion criteria tu tak terlibat pada publication saja. Kalau perkongsian data tu boleh, then they should acknowledge that the researcher are actually sharing data, and the data is being used for other things, bukannya for just one research saja. So mungkin ini kita kena fikirkan secara lebih besarlah through the ministry and through the university. Dalam era AI yang mampu menjadikan golongan pantas, bagaimana institusi boleh memastikan data ini? Okay, this is where the data stewards is being trained. Kita train the data stewards, and the data, metadata tu, the data dah masuk, data stewards have to check through and ensure that the data is correct and is has got integrity. But kalau you masukkan data yang tak berintegriti, somebody else guna, then immediately everybody tahu that data tu ada yang tak sahih lah. Okay, it's not actually correct data. But this is the work of the data stewards, which is where we do the training. Okay, so memang and we also now actually are looking at the internationally there is now going to be guideline on AI and how AI is being used in open science. Okay, but one of the way that AI is being used that is very good for us is that it helps to do the translation bit. Sebab some data are being deposited. For example, kalau you go to Korea, dia punya data banyak dalam Korean. Okay, dia ada data banyak-banyak lain because dia ada juga link, because they link to a lot of international, so data dia ada millions. So some data are in English, some data are in Spanish, some data in Korean, but AI will be able to help you translate. Tapi you have to actually ensure that the data that is being put in, okay, is the correct data lah. So data stewards are very important when they do the curation of the data. Bagaimana IPTS nak mula open science ni, dan bagaimana cara mendapat develop? Adakah kami perlu jadi data steward? No, you need to have, as I mentioned earlier, you need to have a policy. We have one IPTS actually, 2 IPTS now, looking at policies already and actually dah start the repository. So how do you want to start it? Your university has to come up with a policy and the one to want to do it. Okay, so biasanya usually dia mula daripada TNC PNI. Sebab the data collected research data, raw research data biasanya, so it starts with the TNC PNI and then how you actually gather data. It's just that Mosti dah mula, Mohi belum lagi. Any research grant that is funded by Mosti, you must have a research data management plan on how you're going to share this data. So it's quite important for you now to actually look at open science data. Kalau tak, you tak boleh nak apply for the grant. So so you should have the research dekat your RMC. You should think about research data management plan. Okay, and how you're going to actually share this data. It just doesn't stay in your lab book ataupun in your office ataupun on your laptop. It should be shared. So there must be a policy at the university on how to do it. So even IPTS, you need to actually have this, and then you can actually now train the data stewards lah. Because kalau macam dekat UM pun, for example, when we started with the policy. And then we build the platform. Sebab mula-mula kita mula-mula kita kata okay, let's build the platform. Tapi bila kita build the platform, we don't know what is going to be put in there. So you have to have a research data management plan. What are the data that you can include? What are the data? How are you going certain things? Are these data protected, confidential, so that we know. And then after that, we train the data stewards on how this data boleh dimasukkan ke dalam the repository. Okay. Sebagai seorang yang terlibat secara langsung dalam pembangunan ekosistem sains terbuka, pada para pihak saya ingin mengamalkan pengurusan data lebih sistematik. Well, actually, I think you just need to go through the data stewardship, kan? Data stewardship. Then you'll be able to actually see what are the data, what is the requirement. Sebab, okay, one of the most difficult thing about open science ni ialah dalam dia punya principle tu kan, fair, findable. Kalau you dah ada data repository and you ada means of people boleh cari, it's easy. Findable boleh, okay. Accessible, you boleh, the data is there, dia dah jumpa, boleh tak dia access, okay. Kalau tak boleh akses, boleh tak dia dapat cara akses. So kalau katakan the data is closed, tapi kalau macam you go to Mosby, you tengok macam katakan you go to UM, PUSM, ke mana-mana data dia, ada yang open, ada yang close. Kalau you pergi dekat NIH, dia restricted. Tapi bila kita kata close, kita akan kata, okay, this data is closed, please contact data owner who is the researcher or the institution, okay, which is the university. So you can contact, biasanya kita suruh you contact the university will contact the data owner. Boleh tak buka? Ataupun boleh tak you share? Tapi kita tak buka, you share sendiri. Then you buat agreement sendiri lah between the university dengan university ataupun the researcher dengan researcher to collaborate. Okay? So accessible is there. The most difficult is interoperable. Okay, reusable is another one lah. So but if you can interoperable, you can reuse. Okay, sebab sistem tak sama, cara you masukkan data tak sama. Jadi orang tak boleh nak guna data tu. So this is where we need to have the data stewards trained properly. Okay, so you can ada researchers to be trained as data stewards so that they can do big data analytics. Okay, but mula-mula kita train perpustakawan because perpustakawan is easier to train because they know how to do this. But subsequently, after three or four times, researcher will also understand this is what's important and how I do it. Okay, so that is how we can do it lebih systematically lah. But you need to have your research data management plan to plan properly. Okay, and what are the data that is going to be in. So I hope I answer that. How to mengamalkan pengurusan data. Because we know how we put in the data, we know how the data is going to be organized, but we don't want to put in any data yang berguna pun dalam tu kan, nobody can use. Okay. Tentang data-data dikumpul daripada citizen project dihasilkan oleh Penyelidikan. Adakah Mosby ada plan? Yes, kita sebenarnya, that's why I cakap, dia banyak juga citizen science. Kita sekarang ni tengah memikirkan macam mana kita nak buat citizen science punya data yang kita gather ni. We are actually studying a few places yang buat citizen science internationally, macam mana they gather the data, and then kat mana platformnya. Okay, nanti kita akan tengok insyaAllah. Bagaimana dengan pembentukan task force, okay, for open science. As I mentioned tadi, biasanya kita akan start daripada TNC PNI, but there are two things that are very important here. Kadang-kadang orang buat TNC PNI, lepas tu dia buat dengan, kadang-kadang dia letak bawah TNC pembangunan lah. Pembangunan dia letak under under Pusat Teknologi Maklumat. This doesn't work very well. You can ada task force. To me, it would be better to be under TNC PNI, sebab what you want is the research data, raw research data. But within that task force, macam kat UM, kita ada librarian on the task force, kita ada Pusat Teknologi Maklumat on the task force, and kita ada RMC on the task force. RMC currently is the secretariat which may move subsequently to Pusat Teknologi Maklumat, tapi the RMC ada universiti kata dia tak boleh nak move sebab RMC is not on the task force. Okay, RMC should be on task force because RMC gathers all this data. Okay, so best to have, of course, pada saya TNC PNI, RMC, library dengan Pusat Teknologi Maklumat. Okay, so those are the task force, members of the task force, I feel. So it has got to start off from your top management lah, to have that policy sebenarnya. Tanpa policy, ada satu universiti Penyelidikan lah, dia dah start dia punya repository even before open science came up lah, 10 years ago. Okay? Dia kata dia mesti deposit the data, researchers must deposit dia punya data into the repository. Tapi dia kata bila open science start, dia kata oh, we already have the repository. But bila dia tengok repository tu, ada apa dalam tu, kosong. Adalah sikit-sikit, tapi it's not what we actually envision open science punya data is. Lepas tu dia kata baru dia realise, because dia cakap macam tu, but there is no policy to mandate that your research data must be deposited. So bila ada policy tu dia jadi lebih senang. But I also have to tell you the experience that we have, cerita experience yang we have kat UM. researchers mula-mula pun tak nak juga. Dia kata, oh, why should I share my data? This is my data. It's, first and foremost, it's not your data. Sebab you're publicly funded. This was, dan lepas tu, this is us trying to get international grant, dapat international grant. Okay, masa tu kita masih dengan UK. Masa tu masih tak ada. So what happens is the UK punya counterpart kata, if you don't have research data management plan and repository, all your data will have to be deposited in our repository in the UK. So Malaysia punya data deposit dekat UK. Okay. Lepas tu mula-mula the first year tu they did this, macam-macam lah busy. We all not happy because kita tak ada research, tak ada masa tu research data management plan. So because of this, we started the research data management plan and we started the repository. After a while, this group yang collaborate dengan international ni, they're very happy. Dia dah tahu macam nak masuk because dia dah learn daripada the group in Glasgow tu. Dia masuk kan. So they're happy to do it. Dia kata, and it's easy for them as well because the data is there. The data is there and senang for subsequent student to masuk and just continue daripada situ pun because dia dah ada data. Tak payah nak cari daripada lab. So it actually makes our research a lot easier sebenarnya. And one of the things that we wanted to do now is to also have a real-time open system. So kalau katakan you are collaborating dengan somebody in UK, you are gathering data kan, dia boleh dapat kalau you bagi access to them into your repository, your account, okay, they can access you punya data online at real time. So kalau kita cuti raya 10 hari, they need the data. Dia tak payah nak tunggu kita cuti raya 10 hari. Baru dia boleh dapat data. Macam saya collaborate dengan Jepun. Saya tak payah nak tunggu orang Jepun tu, dia cuti New Year dia 3 hari. So saya perlukan data tu there and then. So I boleh access data daripada dia internationally. So, makes collaboration a lot easier as well kalau ada data in open access. Okay? Alright. Tu dah tak ada soalan. Orang saya rasa.
Prof, ada satu lagi soalan terakhir saya dapat ni. Yang terakhir lah Prof. Okay.
Okay.
Adakah terdapat platform atau repository sumber terbuka yang Prof syorkan bagi institusi yang belum mampu membangunkan sistem sendiri? Contohnya untuk RDM.
Ya, buat masa ni ada a few cara lah kita buat. Kita ada one institution tu kita try to kau team dengan Radas dekat Musti. Dia ada platform dia dan kita kata boleh tak kita guna sikit storage untuk di university. Sekarang ni kita tengah bercakap dengan our alliance member kalau yang ada, for example, especially research university yang ada banyak storage space, boleh tak kita tolong bantu by providing storage space. Okay, digunakan because you can use it on cloud ya. So digunakan oleh certain institution. For example, kalau katakan dekat utara kan, UUM dengan UUM dengan Unimas, UMP, sorry, kalau dia tak cukup, tak ada space, boleh tak USM tolong dia because USM ada space ni. Sebab masa kita mula-mula start dulu, kita bagi funding kepada the research university ni to help to actually to look at their repository. To help in their repository lah sebab dia orang kata dia orang ada banyak data tapi tak cukup space. So kita ada bantu. So mungkin kita boleh buat macam tu dan MUHI pun actually dalam because I was talking dalam one of the MUHI sekarang tengah membangunkan dia punya repository juga. So for dia punya FRGS bla bla kan. So dia kata kita cadangkan yang mana universiti yang tak mampu lagi punya dia punya own repository, mungkin dia boleh guna MUHI punya repository dulu. So di situlah. Cuma my worry is kat MUHI, dia kena ada data stewards yang jaga, yang tolong bantu untuk curate the data. Sebab kita tak nak nanti universiti just dump everything kat situ kan, nanti dia punya data jadi saya nak guna data untuk buat dia, ada satu research saya KP suruh saya buat dan saya nak guna data migrant tu mengambil masa 1 bulan dan 4 research officer to clean up because orang main dump je data walaupun kita kata data tu di audit tapi dia main dump saja. So data tu saya kena clean up. So kalau ada betul research data steward yang menjaga, so kita perlu nak buang masa kita clean up data 1 bulan dan 4 research officer. Kalau saya ada 1 je research officer, mungkin 4 bulan saya kena clean up data je dulu sebelum saya boleh guna data untuk continue the research. So itu yang pentingnya. Okay, tapi mungkin Mohi akan ada this data lah, this platform atau this repository.
Okey, baik Prof. Rasanya setakat itu sahaja soalan yang diterima.
Okay, thank you.
So jadi saya akan ke sesi penutup lah.
Okay.
Alright. Hadirin yang dihormati, sebelum kita mengakhiri sesi ini, saya ingin mengucapkan setinggi-tinggi penghargaan kepada semua pihak yang telah menjayakan webinar pada hari ini. Ucapan terima kasih kepada Prof. Dr. Noorsaadah binti Abd Rahman atas kesudian beliau berkongsi ilmu dan pengalaman bersama kita semua. Terima kasih juga kepada semua peserta yang telah meluangkan masa untuk bersama-sama mengikuti webinar pada hari ini. Dimohon setiap peserta untuk mengisi borang keberkesanan latihan yang telah dikongsikan di ruangan chat. Peserta akan mendapat sijil secara automatik setelah mengisi borang tersebut. Sebagai tanda hadir, peserta dijemput untuk mengaktifkan kamera masing-masing bagi sesi bergambar. Kita ambil sesi bergambar sikit, Prof. Kita ada 4 slide ni. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, 2, 2, 3. Okey, akhir kata semoga ilmu yang dikongsikan pada hari ini memberi manfaat kepada kita semua. Terima kasih sekali lagi atas perhatian dan penyertaan anda. Semoga kita berjumpa lagi dalam webinar yang akan datang. Sekian, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera.
Salam. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Prof. Cik Faizul.
Ya.
Okay.